Hey there, everyone. Chris Kroll here again, your quarantine host for Solar Distancing. I'm the managing editor of Solar Builder, and we have been covering the ins and outs of solar plus storage, off-grid, on-grid, and we are going to close out today with maybe our most celebrity guest of the video series so far. With you may know him as Worldwide Weber, but this is John Weber, Outback International Sales Manager. Hey, John.
Hello. How are you guys today?
Very well. So yeah, I know you're like an accomplished, traveled uh, expert in this area, but then also just hosting videos, many more than I have and everything. So I feel intimidated to be in your presence right now.
It's an exciting and honored position that I have here, supporting international sales around the world and being able to visit those sites. Just a little plug for if you're interested in seeing some of the microgrid applications we've done and charity work that we've done through different organizations. You can just simply put in hashtag Worldwide Weber with 2 B's, and you can check out all the videos that I've created. A lot of interesting content from Nigeria, South Africa, Pakistan, Central and South America, and even Intersolar Europe and Solar Power International. So we're around the world, and a lot of neat videos that have been created. So check them out.
Awesome, man. So those were the days when you were allowed to leave your house. Very interesting.
It is.
I vaguely remember those times.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks since we've left the house. We're fortunate here. We live on 10 acres. So it's kind of like living in a middle of a park. So we get out and are able to walk around. I definitely empathize with those around us that don't have the opportunity to get out and are kind of stuck in the house. So I'm glad that you guys are all joining us on this little webinar series to learn a little more about renewable energy.
Yes. So our topic today is system monitoring. And, we talked a lot about installation and how to set up a system and those types of questions. But I'm very interested to get into, okay, the system's here, it's up and running. Now what happens? What am I paying attention to? So I guess let's start there. What is the kind of the basics of monitoring? What am I watching? And then walk me through the steps of, what's the homeowner paying attention to? What's the solar installer paying attention to after they've installed it? So just take it away.
Yeah, so the primary device that we have within the Outback system is called the Mate 3. And the Mate 3 actually has an Ethernet chip ability to then send that data out to a website called opticsre.com. And that allows the homeowner and the installer to have 2 very different views actually of the systems and the systems that they're helping to manage. So with the homeowner, with their own personal login, they're able to see their home, their historical data, 1-3 days. Most people are just going to see that at a glance. Now, I'm fortunate enough that I actually live with an Outback system here at my home, and we have a small $50 tablet hung in the home that just leaves optics up all the time. So at a glance, I can look over and see if the grid is there or not, because the transfer time is so quick on the Outback equipment that you may miss the fact that you're in a power outage, and you want to change your behaviors based on if you have grid or you don't have grid. So your daily solar production, things like that are very easy to view. Whereas the installer, they're going to maybe want to be able to look at their customer system, how are their batteries doing, but they're also going to want to have a larger view of that system and being able to look at many systems at once. And optics allows one installer to see many systems all at once. So if they're managing 30 or 40 sites, they can see those on a big map in the front screen and just simply see what systems are maybe a different color. That means they need to have some attention to it. And then further to that, and I think it's a good statement to make, is that it is a very active system where you're actually receiving communications from optics to be able to see if the system's in trouble. If you did lose grid, you can receive an email.
Yeah, so that's the part I wanted to get into next, is kind of the intelligence that is available within a monitoring system. And especially when it comes to the storage side of things, I imagine there's just a lot of things to pay attention to, depending on the battery that you've chosen and that are there, that, to make sure that it's operating properly and is being charged and discharged the right ways and stuff. So I guess what are some things that to look for or to know about system monitoring and kind of that more granular level and the intelligence that the system has?
Sure. So with those emails that come out, there's about 200 reasons why it can email you, but most of the time there's just some key points that you want to have that system. So if you're a residential homeowner, you may be interested to receive an email when you lose power, or you may be interested to receive an email when the system switches into selling in the morning. But then you may want to turn that off after you're comfortable knowing, yes, every day the system is going in and selling. Now, if it's an off-grid system, and let's say it's a second home, and you want to make sure that your batteries aren't going to get too low, or you want to understand when the generator is turning on or off, you can receive those emails. You can actually go into optics and look at how often that generator is turning on. And you can do a loose calculation from that point about how much fuel you've consumed, especially during the winter time. And when you get some changing weather, like in the spring, we have a lot of clouds or rainy days in a row, and that generator, maybe they're topping off the batteries. You want to understand when you need to come up with a new propane bottle or be able to deliver fuel to that site. And both the installer as well as the homeowner can participate in that. One step further with the installer is they can then manage a whole bunch of systems in exactly the same way. If a customer's having trouble, probably the worst thing that you do is roll a truck out, go out there for 15 minutes, go, oh yeah, I need a part. And then you have to go back, get the part, and then drive all the way back out there. With optics, you get that opportunity to actually look at what the system was doing. Were the batteries full before I lost communications? What was the weather like the day before? So you can look at some of that data and correlate it into some troubleshooting before you even roll the truck. So if you know that there was, let's say, a lightning storm the night before, then and then suddenly the system isn't working. You say, okay, the batteries were full and then the system went dark. What happened? It could have been a lightning strike, took out a charge controller or took out the Outback system. And, acts of God are just one of those things that sort of happen. So being able to troubleshoot before you go out there is a huge time saver. And as you get more savvy with the Outback equipment and more comfortable with it, you can definitely understand what you need to be bringing with you before you even go out there.
And just curious, because all that's like really interesting to me. Do you have examples, or are there installers that are even more proactive, where it's not as much troubleshooting, but diving into and like noticing how a customer could be better utilizing their system to improve their ROI in a certain way? Maybe, is there a proactive alerts in those ways too, or is it all just kind of like making sure that things are working and not broken?
No, so one of the things that you're going to start seeing is customers are going to start asking, they're like, okay, I have a battery-based grid tie system. I live in Northern California. I'm worried about fires, but as certain incentives maybe go away in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, customers are going to start asking, hey, I can't sell power back to the grid. That incentive went away. It doesn't make sense for me. The cost of power is high enough during these times of uses. I actually want to start doing self-consumption. So the installer can actually start looking at, with the customer, the historical data to really understand those loads that the customer's been using, so they can do a pretty quick analysis of the amount of storage that they have, and if they can actually extract a little bit more out of the life of those batteries and get a real return on investment even after incentives have gone away. So there's some really interesting ways that you can use that data to educate the customer and yourself about some new approaches to the use of the system.
Cool. Very interesting. I guess we'll just wrap up. Is there any particular place you'd like to point people to learn more about Optics RE, or to understand more about the monitoring system that Outback has available?
Yeah, so you can just head over to www.opticsre.com, and I'm sure there'll be a link in the description
Sure.
that will help you out with finding that site. There's a demo button down on the left-hand side. Just click on that. You can click through a couple of sample systems that are on there, and that will help you understand kind of what that data is. If you are a new installer and considering going from being a grid tie installer, let's say, to a battery-based installer, you can be quite nervous about those first couple of systems. Did I size the batteries right? Is the customer using them correctly? Those types of questions, you can do that analysis, and it's really comforting just to jump into that system first thing in the morning, see how they did overnight, and you really have a little bit of a leeway when you first install a set of batteries to maybe add some more storage. If you let it go too long, then the batteries start aging beyond, and so now you have two dissimilar batteries if you needed to add storage later. So being able to do a first install and site analysis from the comfort of your home with a cup of coffee in your hand is a huge benefit, especially if it's your first couple of systems that you're trying to do. And I'm very familiar with a lot of other monitoring systems, and I'm pretty comfortable saying that Optics actually is one of the leaders in that set of data for battery-based consumers and installers. So I'd encourage you guys to consider it and check out the site. I think you'll find it quite easy to use.
Awesome. Well, hey, John, thanks for joining us today. I don't know if it's safe to call you homebound Weber now instead of worldwide Weber.
For now, yes.
But hey, thanks for joining us, and hopefully I did okay for your that you have a really nice setup there. I'm just kind of like but anyway, thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you and appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.
Definitely. And the rest of you out there, be sure to stay safe, stay away, but go solar.